would provide total support for this concept because 90% of it is going back to property owners for tax relief. So 10% would be in a grant program for rural communities in Montana to fund infrastructure. I'm deliberately keeping it that simple. There'll be far more details and fine print, but the bottom line is in being a part of these discussions since 1999 when I got here to Montana, it's really challenging to have these discussions get traction with anybody other than local units of government who are struggling to fund services. And in this case, what's happening is not a funding of expansion of services, but frankly, that's the reality of where we are and where we've been with those who are in control in Helena. I think what it does do for us very directly, assuming you pass the consent agenda tonight, similar to 2 years ago, amongst our legislative agenda is to support legislation that shifts the tax burden away from property owners where appropriate and on to users of services. So this is kind of squarely in that wheelhouse. Really don't have enough information to have an in-depth conversation about it, but I think it's really important we start looking at this, considering it. The committee obviously will, and you may hear some buzz because actually it was counties around the state of Montana where this conversation started. So we're far from the first ones brought in to this, but I just want to flag LC 3388. Hopefully here in the upcoming days or weeks that will be filled in. There'll be a bill behind it, but that's the general idea. And one last number for you, based on the data they shared, we'll do some verification. You're talking about in Yellowstone County, $13.6 million of tax relief that could be provided based on, some fairly recent calculations of revenue through these types of these businesses. So we've talked a lot about wanting to get to tax relief, wanting to get to a tax shift. That's what this gets into. So I just want to flag it for you with more information to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We'll then go to public comment on non-public hearing items. So there's a copy of our agenda back on the cart there if you don't have one. We're going to now open it up for public comment on things that we will not have a public hearing on later. So if you're here to comment on something where there will be a public hearing later, please wait until that public hearing. In this case, that'd be items 2 and 3. Item 2 being the special review 995, the car wash on Blue Creek Road, and number 3, SID 1421, the SID near Greenbrier Road. We'll have a public hearing on those 2 items later when we get to those items, but now is the opportunity to be heard on anything other than those 2, including item 1, the consent agenda, and everything else. So if you'd like to comment on those others besides 2 and 3, please come to the podium now. Just ask that you tell us your name and address and keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Dale Parkin. I want to apologize to everyone for my conduct last week. It was my first time publicly speaking, and I should have been more prepared and stayed for the entirety. I also exaggerated my sleep schedule. Sometimes I get 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And I'll be 40 in a handful of months, so. I want to say that the traffic flow in this city is remarkable. I am absolutely impressed. And like a conductor at a symphony, I will make this city run with equal fluency. I assure the public that at my reasonable fee, I'd be working for years before I ever had $1 million in the bank. I'm an inventor, writer, dreamer, but I want to see reflectors put in the dark streets that have no street lights. It's really scary out there when we're driving at night. There's some gnarly potholes by the Shiloh exit and the Five Guys. You tear apart your vehicle, that's pretty expensive right there. You have a chopper that flies really low here in this city, And I've heard consumers really irritated by it. I've also heard from quite a few residents that the transit system needs to be overhauled. And I know what to do with the hub, and I will smash the homeless population to almost non-existent levels. I have so much more to share with you, but I'd like to be paid for my efforts. Please hire me, and we'll help fix our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Larry McComas, 1119 12th Street West. On your agenda tonight is 4A, and I'd like you guys to approve that, please. I've had at least 4 conversations with the people from the city, so please approve 4A. Thank you.
Thank you. Missing sidewalk program. Very good. Any other comments on those items?
Good evening. My name is Dave Kahlberg, and my wife and I live on 2718 Virginia Lane. We've been there for 48 years. I'm the one that sent an email to all of you last week making comments about the various sidewalk projects around Billings. The city has bulked 6 of them together, and I'm here to remind you or ask you to vote no on the Virginia Lane part of that project. The reasons are numerous. I listed about 5 of them in